Anytime. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. This government is wasting everyone's time. And if there's one thing that this do-nothing budget made clear, it's that they have no intention of doing anything for the people of Ontario. No plan to fix the crisis in our hospitals or to hire and retain nurses who are leaving the healthcare system in droves. No plan to relieve teaching shortages in our schools, especially special education teachers and their assistants. No plan to build homes that are affordable for real people. No plan to support our struggling universities, and certainly no plan to fight the climate change crisis. I want to talk about the last Ford failure in particular for a moment. Last night, the very person who had to resign from cabinet because of the scandalous Greenbelt giveaway, which is now under RCMP investigation, moved a motion to yet again distract from this failure of a budget and from the fact that Doug Ford is content to stick his head in the sand and pretend that Ontario doesn't need to have any kind of plan for climate change. He's ripped up over $230 million worth of green energy contracts and ripped out EV charging stations. In fact, the only reason that we have a federal carbon tax in Ontario is because Doug Ford tore up the Made in Ontario alternative. So if you think about it, Doug Ford is king of the carbon tax. He's wasted time in the legislature. Over just 41 sitting days, Ford's MPPs asked 272 questions, and introduced 6 motions about a federal policy, a policy Doug Ford himself brought to Ontario. Healthcare and the environment, only 2 questions each. And it's all a distraction, ultimately, from Doug Ford's complete failure as a premier. As I announced earlier this month, Ontario Liberals are going to do our homework, and we will make a plan that will restore Ontario to a position of leadership on climate change. And it will be an effective plan that will not need a consumer carbon tax. So unlike Doug Ford, I believe in doing the real hard work to move our province forward, not in reverse, in a way that considers the needs of real people in Ontario. So just to be clear, we will not entertain these silly motions. They are nothing but political theater meant to distract from Doug Ford's inaction. We will be focusing on holding Doug Ford to account for spending all of his time, energy, and your taxpayer dollars to help his wealthy friends instead of helping you. Ontario deserves much better. People of Ontario need a choice. You don't have to settle for a government that is not working for you. And now I'd like to pass the podium to John Fraser, our MPP from Ottawa South.
Thank you very much. Never has a government in Ontario spent so much, borrowed so much, incurred so much debt, and failed to address the most pressing issue of the day, affordability. There are no measures in this budget to give relief to renters who are facing massive rent increases. There is no real hope for anybody who's looking for an affordable place to live or to buy. And I think most importantly, I think what sticks out to me is there are 2 million Ontarians that don't have a family doctor, who are now faced with having to use their credit card instead of their OHIP card to access basic primary care services. In the budget, in the first 10 minutes, the finance minister said the word carbon tax 10 times. We're now going to be voting on our 6th motion here today. And as Bonnie said just a minute ago, since October 25th, in about 41 sessional days, government members have risen 272 times to ask a question about the carbon tax. 272 times. And How many times did they get up and ask a question about the environment? How many times did they rise? Twice. Healthcare, about the 2 million Ontarians that don't have a family doctor? Twice. The pressures facing renters, those massive rent increases, the fact that we don't have real rent control on too many families here in Ontario? Not once. Not once. So, Doug Ford is really quite quick to point a finger. But in this budget, he's not lifting a finger to address those things that are most important to Ontario families. This government, this legislature, needs to focus on those things. What's happening here, it's gone beyond the ridiculous, and maybe even beyond the sublime. We witness it every day. There are things Doug Ford can do to relieve the pressure that's on families. But all he's content to do right now is to point a finger and watch passively as Ontario families struggle. Thank you.
John and I are here to take your questions.
So I appreciate your comments about question period. I agree that it's become a little bit repetitive. But on the carbon tax...
You mean political theater?
I have no comment there. But it's objectively repetitive. On the carbon tax and finding an alternative. Scott Moe was just talking to a committee in Ottawa, and he said that in his province, he looked at alternatives to the carbon tax. He does not like the carbon tax, obviously, and they were all too expensive. What do you think that you can do that Scott Moe can't do and find an alternative that isn't expensive?
There are a lot of alternatives. I think that's just a cop-out on the part of the Premier. As we know, the Prime Minister has sent those premiers a letter, those premiers that do not have a climate action plan addressing our climate crisis, a letter saying, well, if you don't come up with your own plan, that's the reason you have the carbon tax today. And that's exactly what happened here in Ontario. This Premier, Doug Ford, cancelled an Ontario-made solution, which at the time was cap and trade, and that's why Ontarians today have a carbon tax. We will be doing our homework. We will look for those alternatives. There are many levers, many measures we can pull. We will do our homework. We have brought together a panel of experts, and they will make some of those recommendations to us as a caucus and to the Ontario Liberal Party, consulting with party officials, with stakeholder groups, and we will help us formulate our policy going into the next election. But there will not be a consumer carbon tax, but there will be measures that will make polluters accountable.
So it's not just Scott Moe.
I just want to go back to, if you take a look at our party's record, right?
Please do that.
Created the Greenbelt, we ended coal, we invested in green energy, not only to bring it here, but to build it here. We had a Made in Ontario climate change plan that didn't put a burden on families, that was working. And the Premier canceled that plan. And when he did that, he opened the door, right? He opened the door to the thing that he's spending so much time complaining about. So all he needs to do is just take a good look in the mirror.
It's not just Scott Moe that says alternatives to a carbon tax are expensive. There was 100 economists who signed an open letter recently saying that a carbon price is actually the least costly way to lower emissions. Are they wrong?
Well, look, where's the world going? You have Europe right now that's going to be looking at tariffs if we don't meet our climate change goals. Other countries. It's going to affect trade. Like, the world is going there. The world is going there. It's been going there for a while, and it's leaving Doug Ford behind. It's leaving us behind because he has no plan. Like, if he had a plan, then we wouldn't be doing these debates. He just has done nothing. Sorry, Bonnie, just go ahead.
That's fine. Any other questions?
I mean, this seems like a winning issue for the Conservatives for a large swath of the public. A lot of people seem to have been turning on this policy. Even you guys have decided to not pursue a carbon tax yourself. So clearly something has changed about this policy. Why should the Conservatives not capitalize on that for themselves?
Well, they're making this political drama, political theater, without addressing the issues that affect people's lives directly. And let's be honest, they don't have a plan for climate change, for addressing climate change. They're not holding polluters accountable. There is no plan. So yes, we have a carbon tax here in Ontario. We are saying that we will have a very ambitious plan that will be supported by experts, that we will take recommendations from our panel of experts. We will meet with stakeholders. We will discuss it with party officials. And we will have a Made in Ontario plan.
Why does it matter if they're, going up every day? That's what happens in politics. That's part of the game, no?
PC questions are never substantial.
Like those government.
I'm sorry, but how can the press excuse this? They're not dealing with the real issues that affect Ontarians today. They'd rather deal in silly motions and political drama and political theater. I don't think the parents of autistic children would like to know that. I don't think single moms trying to run their whole households want to know that. Young people who want to buy a house and can't afford their rent, let alone a mortgage, want to hear that. They want to know what this government is going to do for them to make their lives more affordable. Not stand up every single day and capitulate on a policy that they have no plan to address.
Bonnie's right. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what they're doing. Are they not proud of what they're doing for renters? No, they're not, because they're doing nothing. Are they not proud of their housing record? They say it. Nobody gets up and asks a question, because they're not really doing very much. The Greenbelt died, and their housing plan died with it. It's like they're not talking about important issues. I'm not saying they can't talk about it, but everything, every day, the last 3 days, every question, every single question. There's nothing else they're proud of? It's beyond being a joke. It's beyond being ridiculous. They're not going to play this game anymore.
And you mentioned housing. Let's talk about their record on building affordable housing. They're leaving $357 million federal money on the table because they haven't achieved 10% of their very own goals. $357 million that could go into revenue, that could go in to assist to build affordable housing, that could help the crisis in our hospitals, the shortages in our secondary schools, funding our secondary schools properly, addressing the teaching shortages in our elementary and high schools, hiring more special education teachers and assistants. This government's record is dismal, and all they want to do is talk about a policy that is a federal policy that they have no solution to address.
Have you spoken with the federal Liberals about that $357 million?
We have not spoken directly about that, other than we've received the same notices everyone else has, that the province of Ontario is leaving $357 million on the table because they're not achieving their housing affordability targets. They've not reached 10% of them. They've built 1,500 units of over 20,000 that were intended to be built.
On another topic, the international students and the way that the government has decided to divvy up those numbers.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
So let's say that, first of all, we do support the fact that we are now coming to terms with a proper policy on foreign students. But the reality is we need to fund our post-secondary institutions properly. Increase the funding. What I understand is that here in Ontario, operating funding is only 30% supported by government. In other provinces, it's over 60%. So, of course, our post-secondary institutions are relying on revenue brought in by foreign students. So, yes, of course, I understand they're now being capped, and we're now penalizing those predatory career colleges, which is the right thing to do. But let's do the right thing, and let's properly fund our post-secondary institutions. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just the government doesn't have much choice, because they've used foreign students in our publicly funded post-secondary institutions as a cash cow. Right? They didn't let tuition rates go up. They didn't give any extra funding. So they allowed these post-secondary institutions to have to rely more and more on these students. The government doesn't have any choice. It's not like they're doing something nice. If they didn't do it and they spread it out a bit more, it'd cost them money. There's nothing altruistic about this. It's just trying to fix a problem that they created.
But given all that, you agree with what they're doing.
Well, even this
Go ahead,
budget,
yeah.
no, even this budget has actually cut funding to post-secondary institutions by $400 million. So the solution is properly fund our post-secondary institutions.
On another subject, what do you make of the what the government said about auto insurance reforms in the budget?
So giving people the kind of choice will lead to the cheapest alternative, which would, at the end of the day, I would be very concerned they're not receiving the proper coverage that they will require in a catastrophic incident. So that is my concern. Also, making the insurer the first payer will ultimately increase insurance rates. So that is also a concern. I think what we need to do is sit down with the industry and ensure that, there isn't price gouging, and that certain municipalities like Brampton, we've always hear about Brampton paying exorbitant rates, that the rates are distributed fairly, but people do have accident prevention and the care and protection that they need should they suffer an incident or an accident. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just would agree. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna
What do
say
you
something.
make of this
Okay,
new
sorry.
deal for Ottawa that the Premier announced this morning? Another big lump sum of money for a big city.
I'll start it off and then you can
Yeah.
finish. So I'm glad that this provincial government has realized that Ottawa is in Ontario and finally coming to address some of their needs. And what I will say is that uploading the Highway 174 was an idea. Wasn't it Stephen Blay's bill? It was a private member's bill that our member Stephen Blay had introduced. So you're welcome for giving him the idea. Obviously, they've uploaded both the Gardiner and the Don Valley Parkway here in Toronto, but they've provided no additional funding for the transportation deficit. So an OC Transpo, which is running a $50 million deficit, so they'll have to lay off staff and cut routes. Same here in Toronto. I know that Mayor Chow would have loved to have more operational funding for TTC. So, of course, any money for a municipality is welcome. And John, you can speak to some of the other needs of Ottawa, but it's a drop in the bucket. And Ottawa will not see any checks soon enough, and much of the money is re-announced money other than the uploading of Highway 174.
Yeah, 170 and 174. It's not entirely clear how and when that's going to happen. It's an idea. They've made a commitment to that. It's not uploading the DVP. It's not the same thing. The infrastructure demands. There's no comparison. If you look at it on a per capita basis for what they're doing for Ottawa, it doesn't measure up to what's happening in Toronto, in particular on transit. And Bonnie just clearly said that. And it's kind of like Toronto won the lottery when it came to support for public transit. And Ottawa got not a winner, try again.
Do you expect other cities to be putting their hands out now with this?
Well, if they don't, I'd be surprised.
So ultimately, the solution is to sit down with the Ontario municipalities and really take a hard look at long-term sustainable funding and revenue for cities, upload what is necessary, stop the downloading, and negotiate a new deal for cities. I know that as a former chair of the Ontario Big City Mayors, and I've heard the chair, Marianne Mead Ward, the mayor of Burlington, say this many times: municipalities need a new deal. And I think that's ultimately the solution.
One thing that they've been calling for in that new deal has been not these lump sums of money that have been given by the government, but like a cut of tax revenue,
right,
maybe from the sales tax, something like that. Is that something a Liberal government would consider doing?
So that is one solution. We would have to look at all options and have that discussion with the mayors of the province. There have been many campaigns waged on a percent of the sales tax or further uploading. There are a number of ways to go about it, but we have to have that conversation and find out what the best way to do it is. But what is clear is a new deal for cities is necessary, that cities are asked to cope with things like mental health and addiction that their budgets aren't designed to cope with, the building of affordable homes and the dealing with asylum seekers. Their budgets were never designed to do that. They're asked to build 21st century cities using 19th century means. So let's sit down and have a conversation about what the right way to go about it is and create that new deal for cities. John, did you want to add something? You were
No, I'm good.
flagging
Thank you very
something?
much.
Okay.
Who do you think are going to be the first ones on the list coming out asking for some more cash?
Who should be?
Yeah.
Well, all municipalities are struggling, and they're struggling because of the affordability crisis that this government is failing to recognize. They're dealing with things that have been downloaded to their municipalities, as I described: mental health, addiction issues, homelessness issues. It can go on, healthcare crisis in their communities with emergency clinics closing, the need to build affordable housing, public transit. The list is endless, so every municipality will be lining up.
Final note, you called Doug Ford the king of the carbon tax.
I think that
Is
trumps
kind
the
of an
queen.
admission that the coal queen of the carbon tax thing is starting to bite a bit?
Not at all. I just want people to understand that the reason we have a carbon tax here in Ontario is because Doug Ford cancelled the former plan that was a Made in Ontario solution to address the climate change crisis. And as a result, there is no plan to address the climate change crisis. So by default, there is a carbon tax here in Ontario. Ontario Liberals are suggesting that we will create a plan. We will have a very ambitious and progressive plan that will address the climate change crisis. For goodness sakes, I think I've worn my winter coat and my winter boots twice this year. To deny there is a crisis on our hands is putting your head in the sand. We need a solution to the climate change crisis, and this government is failing to address it. All right. Thanks very much for having us here today.